Hey, I'm Tom.
And I'm John.
And we're the co-founders of handsomefrank Illustration Agency.
In this series, we'll be sitting down and talking to our illustrators, finding out more about them, their artistic process, and the creative industry we work in.
Welcome to our podcast.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
How you doing, Tom?
Yes, good. Full of beans as always.
You've got a Handsome Frank branded beer on the go.
Yeah, well, I think it's just important and necessary to all branded elements everywhere.
Shout out to Green King for the lovely beer,
And
illustrated by Tobias Hall. I, on the other hand, feeling a bit sick because you just bought Lindt chocolate bunnies for everyone.
Did you eat the whole thing?
I ate the whole thing.
Me too.
So this is either going to be like high energy or just sugar rush.
I think we'll crash halfway through.
Chaos. But anyway, hopefully we won't crash because we are joined today by, Handsome Frank OG, original lineup. So welcome to the podcast, Tim McDonagh.
Hi guys, thank you so much.
How you doing?
Not too bad.
Did you have a nice train journey up?
I didn't have my book or my headphones, so just had the window.
You raw dogged it.
Yeah, that's what they call it now. I only heard that term the other day. Yeah, just the window.
Down with the kids.
Yeah.
Where did your mind wander to?
This podcast, what I was going to talk about.
Happens to me every single time.
Yeah, like replaying, the worst case scenario, that kind of thing.
I'm glad we're fulfilling the
the
dream.
subject of your anxiety today.
Yeah.
Well, no, thanks for coming up. We were going to come to Brighton. I looked at the trains, and I have to be honest, it was going to be 5 hours on trains for me compared to 2 hours for you, I think.
I'm happy to do the training.
Really appreciate that.
No, it's cool.
Especially if you did it with no book or headphones.
It's actually a nice little break. I like being on there.
Yeah,
I like being on a train.
Oh, good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us. I mentioned then that you are, one of the original Handsome Frank artists, but I think you were in the very, very first lineup, or very early on anyway, because we signed you back in 2010.
Yeah, I know. That just seems crazy.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, happy 15 years.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
Not sure where that went.
Yeah.
But I think the first time I saw your work was literally your graduation show.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, I had I still remember that time pretty strongly. I remember, I really had no plan coming out of university. I had a vague thing in my head of if I can get my work in one magazine in the next year or two, that would be a good
that was the aim.
Goal,
Yeah.
And then you won D&AD New Blood, right?
Yeah. Which was it was crazy. It was
pretty big.
I kind of, because I remember just having this whole overwhelming feeling of, oh God, what's going to happen after university, and kind of being a bit just really worried about it. And then my tutors talking up the D&AD so much at the time, and it was they were so frantic about it and worried, and we just want to put in a good thing, and here all the years we've only won once.
So where were you at uni?
At Westminster.
Oh, Westminster, right.
But I don't know if it is now, but D&AD awards were big. They meant a lot.
Yeah, they were. I remember it my tutors just talk about it it's this big thing at the end of the year all the time. And
what did you do for it? Do you remember?
The hippo, right?
Yeah, it's the hippo and the rabbit. I did, because I did the three images that I was going to display. I fought with my tutor a lot about them, and they were they didn't like them. And we had a really nice relationship, but it was quite confrontational, but in a nice way.
In a healthy way.
Yeah, in a healthy way, yeah. And I remember there was a lot of back and forth about those images in particular, and I remember being see, I told you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think am I right in saying that you're the only graduate illustrator we've ever signed?
The one other, I think. Well, Sarah Maycock, but took a while to convince her. I think.
Yeah,
but we did see her work at graduate show, but yes, you are one of the only artists, one of two that we've seen at a grad show.
Really?
And thought,
Yeah.
we want to. And it's funny because those two images, just going back to them, one was of a dead rabbit,
Yeah.
and one was of a hippo being eaten from beneath.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what it was about dying and decaying animals that made me and Tom think,
Hell yeah.
commercial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gold. But I mean, they were incredible, beautiful, detailed images.
Thanks, man. Yeah. 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 I mean, a lot of my work I can look at and kind of shudder a bit, but I look at those and now be like, that's not too bad. You know what I mean? Like, or for that age anyway.
And you used kind of UV inks on one of them, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. I one of them was because there were 3 images, and one of them was like an underwater scene of like a lot of sea animals and that kind of thing, and that was done using like, it was a screen print, but it was like glow in the dark inks. So kind of when you look at it in one way, it was one image. Then when you look at it another, I think some bits turned into something else or something. I mean, I've never done anything like that since.
Really?
But yeah. I mean, I have great memories of doing those and being like, yeah.
And has your process hasn't really changed since 2010, has
I mean,
it?
some parts have, like kind of the way I would do things then. I kind of would love to just do one big drawing and it all kind of come together as one piece. But
Yeah.
because sometimes when you're working commercially, it makes more sense to do lots of separate drawings.
Oh, so you
now
comp them
and-
together.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the project, but
Yeah.
sometimes you can just tell it's going to be easier to like do 5 separate drawings, then put them all together rather than one big one that you're going to have to kind of cut up and that kind of thing. But but essentially the process is still the same, I guess.
And I'd say, I mean, obviously you have evolved and things have changed, but that work still holds up, I think. It's still...
Do you reckon?
I mean, it's... I'll have to relook. But from memory, I mean, yeah, and it's... You essentially still do a similar thing. Like it's almost like you were one of these very rare illustrators who had a style, knew exactly what it was. You came out of university fully formed and you just went ahead and had that career, you know?
Yeah, it's mental. You're saying that because that's not how it felt at the time. It feels like I've got no idea what I'm doing. I still feel like that though. I've got no idea what I'm doing.
Always the same.
Yeah. But yeah, I think through like most of my time through uni, it was like a lot about finding what my work's going to look like and that kind of thing, which I suppose is what it's meant to do.
How do you describe your work and process if someone asks?
What if they say, what kind of thing do you do?
Yeah.
My go-to line is like comic booky, but like a bit different.
Okay.
You know, I say something like that because that gives them some kind of people think
like,
comic books
like
and they think
cartoons.
Yeah, that's
what
a good.
people-
Yeah. No, I just go cartoons. Yes,
Whenever I
cartoons.
get stuck in a conversation with someone who has no idea about the industry and I explain what I do, their usual go-to is what? Oh, like cartoons.
Yeah, I've heard that about a billion times. I just nod and I go, yeah. It's just cartoons.
And then we always get a line of, oh yeah, I've got a friend that does that.
Yeah.
Wow, I should put you in touch.
There's always one. I did sit at a wedding once and somebody said to me, so what do you do? And I said, I'm an illustration agent. She said, oh, I'm an illustrator.
Oh, really?
And a queue 2 hours of like,
Yeah.
you know, toying around
Oh, God.
the elephant in the room. But
dear.
I do think the one thing that has probably changed in your work is the subject matter. I know there's still kind of this underlying darkness or sort of macabre element to it, but I think on the commercial side that maybe has gone a bit. Would you say?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess it has. I mean, I'd like to I often, you know, when things kind of get a bit quieter, if there's room for like personal work, I kind of tend to drift back towards like doing darker stuff. I like my work just suits that look, I think, a bit. But at the same time, commercially, it's sometimes good to show you can do other stuff as well.
Yeah,
you know, or like have a go. You know?
I think that's for me. Looking at like the 15-year body of work, I think stylistically there's not been that much movement, but subject matter has been the biggest evolution.
Yeah, I haven't even really. See, I wouldn't even really think about that. But now that you pointed it out, like I guess, yeah, that's right.
I think you play a lot more with angles, interesting angles that you're drawing from, things like that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like I think that's partly because when I was finished university, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I'd know, you know, it was just easier to draw things flatter and easier to draw animals than people. It's easier to do work in just only a couple of colours because it's, you know, so...
Yeah, it was always sort of stripped back colour palette.
Yeah, and like I kind of feel like I know how to do that stuff now and can like whack that kind of thing out pretty easily if I had to, but it's just became more interesting to try and do more difficult things, you know,
But so all of your line work is pen and ink.
Yeah.
What kind of size do you normally draw?
It like changes. Sometimes things are really small, but most of the time like about A2-ish. So like pretty big.
And then have you got an A2 scanner? Or?
No, I've got, even though my wife has been begging me to buy an A2 scanner for the past 10 years or so, because she cannot watch me scan these things anymore. It drives her crazy. But I've got like a little A4 one. I've got this process that I've never changed since I've done it, because that's how you got to, you know.
So you stitch it all together?
Yeah. So I scan it in like 8 parts.
So I guess you use what you have access to.
Yeah, although once...
But in theory, as you succeed, you can upgrade.
That canvas size must be enormous as well.
Sorry?
The canvas size must be enormous in Photoshop.
Yeah, it is. My file's always really big. And people be like, why is it so big? It's like, because the drawing's big. And I scan everything a higher resolution than it probably needs to be, because just in case people come back and be like, oh, can we have this bigger?
And then all of your colouring work is done in Photoshop?
Yeah.
Nice. And is there anything else you kind of tweak digitally? If you were to change any of the line work, would you go back to pen and ink?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do that a lot. Like, I used to have a process where, so say an image was made up of like 5 layers, and it would have like the line work and then colour one and the clouds and then the trees and that kind of thing. I used to do everything by hand, so I'd like do all the clouds, like ink, draw the clouds and scan the clouds in one, and it would just take forever. But now, so I do like some bits more digitally than others, so smaller bits like clouds and water bits and stuff like that I might do digitally, or but the main line work is always by hand. I mean, when I first bought like my Wacom, what's it called, a Cintiq,
the fancy
tablet one, like the fancy one, I was like, oh, I'm going to try and do my line work digitally and see if I can make it all look the same. You know? And I think I went through like the phase of about a year of seeing if I could do it, but it just didn't. I mean, people do it. I've seen people replicate.
I was going to say, did clients notice, or was it you thinking?
No, clients. Right. I don't think notice, but I can see like if I could just tell it just looked a bit weird, and I could see like further on. I don't know. I don't know. I think if I with a bit more playing around with it, a couple more years, maybe I could get it perfect. But
if it works, it works.
Yeah, but I like the process of like ink on paper, and like it's really nice, especially when you turn your computer off. And then go and work. It's really
and so you're doing a pencil draft before that, right? And then you go over in pen and ink.
Yeah, so do a pencil draft first, scan that in 8 parts, then.
But so when you share those with us, there are so many times that then gets shared on our internal chat, and it's just like,
look what Tim's
done. Even like we could just rep you as a pencil sketch. Like they're so good. The level of detail is amazing.
Sometimes, I mean, that's what I like about. When I was younger, I used to love looking at pencil sketches way more than colour stuff, even more than ink work as well, because there's something interesting about that.
And what were you looking at then? Who are your?
It's just like the Marvel stuff, and it was actually a lot of like instruction booklets for computer games, like the concept art for computer games and stuff like that, and like Tolkien stuff and a lot of that kind of thing when I was really little. It was that kind of stuff. I found more interesting. But even now, I way prefer looking at that and ink work, especially, than like digital colour stuff.
And was it at uni that you found ink, or were you doing that even at A-level GCSE?
No. Like through most of uni, most of college, I was doing like collage stuff and that kind of thing. And I think I told her at our last Christmas party, but like I used to love Michelle Thompson's work at university. And I had her work plastered around my workspace.
Did you tell Michelle?
Yeah, I did.
Good.
So I used to be really into that kind of thing, and then I used to be quite into, like, at that time in like 2007-8, there was a lot of the naive drawing stuff around. Do you remember that? And it was like everywhere. That was really popular. So I did that for a while.
And a lot of that sort of naive hand rendered type that was really
a lot of that. I did a lot of that. Yeah, just because that's what everyone was doing. And then after a while, I was a bit like, I want to be a more serious illustrator. I wanted to be, I don't know, I wanted to be a. So I don't know. I started looking at these American illustrators and
Charles Burns.
Yeah, Charles Burns. That was like a big one. Like Adrian Tamina, and there's a couple of like poster artists, and that kind of completely changed my whole. I was just like, I want to do that. And I was getting really good marks at university for the other stuff I was doing, like the collage stuff and the naive drawing stuff. And then when I was like, I don't want to do it anymore, I'm going to do this, my kind of marks went right down.
Oh, really?
And my tutors were like, well, why are you doing this? And I was like, because I want it to be, I just want the images to look good. That was my whole thing. It's like, I don't care about the concept. I don't care about the idea. I'm not doing concept or ideas. I'm just making the image look good.
What was the course title?
BA-ON's illustration.
Okay.
It's like a illustration only.
Straight illustration course,
but they do kind of sometimes push you down, as you say, like the conceptual side.
They were
things like that.
Pretty big on conceptual stuff, and then I started having a really like, I'm not doing concept anymore.
It's interesting. So you were just wanting to create something that was aesthetically pleasing to you.
That was my big thing. Was like, I am so anti-concept. I didn't even I'd have fights with my tutors. Like, I don't even want to name my project. I'm just making the image look good. And they're like, all right, well, you got to call it something. And I was like, well, this one's called Animals.
Untitled one.
But I've heard other illustrators say the same thing. And I think if you've got a course leader or tutor, like, I'm not knocking them, but if you do have a course tutor who that is their thing, concept-led illustrations, then that's what they push on the students.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can completely understand it. Like, I was just being an arrogant little so-and-so, but at the same time, I think it did help me a lot. I just wanted to figure out how to make things look good.
Yeah.
And your tutors can't really teach you that, because they do, we had some really good tutors, but they do something in their style, and they had a way of working, and you can't just, they can't just teach you their style. And
there's no system you can kind of roll out, is there?
Exactly.
Everyone needs to find their path.
So having that kind of attitude did force me to kind of figure out how these kind of guys were working. And I'd just be on YouTube trying to like look at what brush they're using to do that, and what I mean, 'cause it's a lot harder to get information then about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like now you got so many videos of people showing what the materials they're using and blah 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 blah. But it was really hard to figure. It took me ages.
And access to people as well. Like, you can just DM your heroes now, and if you're lucky, they might reply. Or you can see they've replied to someone else.
Like, it took me a long time to realise that they were using brushes, not pens. I was trying to replicate this kind of line work with fine liners and stuff. And it was only after finding this video of thinking, oh my god, they're using brushes, they're not doing it in pens. That's why it looks like that.
It's like a revelation.
Yeah.
I want to go back, because you mentioned before being a kid and being into computer game art and stuff, and I was sort of doing a bit of research this morning, and you had quite an interesting childhood, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
So I mean, I'll let you explain it, but from what I found, you were born in the UK, but then you moved to the US.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Have you ever seen the Netflix series Wild Wild Country?
I haven't.
Oh really? Okay.
Are you in it?
No. It's like that was a documentary about a cult in America. But I was we kind of moved over to a very, very watered down version of that, maybe. So it wasn't a cult.
It wasn't a cult, but it was a commune.
It was a commune that had roots in kind of Eastern philosophy and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your parents were. So how old were your parents, and what sort of happened to make them make that move? Do you know a lot about it? Or?
Yeah, I do, but it's like I think they just got fed up with life in the UK really at the time.
Yeah.
They just wanted a change and a break from normal life, and my dad was into a lot of that Eastern philosophy and stuff like that. And my mum was really into education. She was a teacher. And my dad was kind of a gardener and into all this other stuff.
Being self-sufficient, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they had this community over there. They didn't quite know what to do with. My parents kind of went to just have a chat with them about it. And then they said to my dad, do you want to take over and run it, like the whole thing? And does your mum want to run the whole school?
Oh, okay. So, and how old were you at this point?
7.
And have you got siblings?
Yeah, 2 younger, yeah.
2 younger. So the 3 of you up sticks.
In the plane, yeah.
To Arizona, is it?
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah. And,
wow. What was that like then?
It was amazing. I mean, like, we talk about it all the time with these amazing memories. We had got given a house and like 100 acres on this community. Everyone kind of grew their own food and like painted, like, what are we going to do with the school? Everyone going to it and we're all going to paint the classroom. So the first thing was like paint the classroom, paint like all that kind of stuff. And it was just beautiful, really. It was lovely.
So a real sense of like ownership of every aspect of it, and very artistic as well, I guess.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and you could kind of go anywhere. No one going to lock their houses or anything. You know, you kind of go out on our bikes and stuff, and it's just beautiful.
What was the story with this thing about snakes falling on a roof?
Yeah, so we where we lived, there was lots of dangerous wildlife, and parents didn't know that, so we had what was called a creek at the back of our house that was full of these alligator snapping turtles, like these big things. And my parents didn't know, they were in there, and they would just let us wade around in there with their bare feet.
Oh my God.
Take your toes right off. And we also had this tree which grew over our house, and in the tree was a lot of snakes, like massive black snakes, like, on it like 4 foot long or so. And my mum, not keen on snakes, that kind of thing. And you would, every now and again, you just hear one just boom, drop onto the roof and slide down there. It was crazy. But I mean, that was the least of it, of how mad it was there. It wasn't mad, but it was just...
And how long were you there for?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so 7 to 10.
Yeah, that's
formative years. So I've got quite strong memories of it. And because of how much of a shift it was, I was just in the, normal school system in the UK, and then you got taken here and all this.
And a lot of the stuff you were drawing when you graduated, dead rabbit, decaying hippo, being eaten. Do you think that was tapping into it? That kind of...
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean that, like, especially the snakes and that kind of thing, made a big impression on me. Just because they were everywhere, and there was like rattlesnakes everywhere, and like I say, snapping turtles, and as a kid, you're always finding them and taking them home, and blah 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 blah. And they're just great to draw.
Yeah, of course.
Scales, all the texture and all that kind of stuff.
And then you moved back to the UK, and the article I found said you had a bit of a culture shock because you came back to very kind of stiff, was it Catholic primary school?
I came out of a Catholic primary school, and I went back into one. So I kind of came out of a Catholic primary school into a commune for a few years, then back into a Catholic primary school. I mean, I had a good time there, actually, when we came back, but then... Yeah, moving up into secondary school, didn't get on with it very well, and then got taken out of there. So then I was homeschooled up until college. I just think it was...
When you say taken out, were you asked to leave?
No, I was kind of bullied quite badly, so I took myself out. But I think I wasn't used to the system. It was weird just being taken out of it for a while, and then you miss a lot of reference points. So everyone's talking about films and culture, and you've got and clothes people are wearing. You're very much out of that.
I think the world is a much smaller place now in terms of fashion and music and trends. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, America was doing completely different things. Probably, especially in West Virginia.
Well, we were so cut off as well. Like we were just doing our own thing. I was wearing, I remember wearing like an army uniform.
Yeah.
You could go to like the army surplus shops and stuff. I remember I like army uniforms, so I'm going to wear an army uniform.
Why not?
So I remember my first day in primary school having like, even down to like the green flask thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
else was in Adidas and Donne and tracksuits and stuff because that's what everyone was wearing. And I just remember thinking, what is going on here? You know?
But also, those were I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday. Like when I was at school, like you'd get bullied for wearing secondhand clothes.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like,
I mean, let alone, you know, Action Man coming in.
Fully formed,
Yeah.
Action Man.
Yeah. So not good. But
These experiences, I mean, maybe not at all, but do you feel like they have influenced your work and how you've ended up with things you'd like to draw, or do you think you would have found that regardless?
I think, I don't know, maybe I would have found it regardless, but I mean, a lot of time like spent on my own and stuff, got quite used to like being in my own company a lot, which is quite a big part of what I do now.
Because you work a lot through the night, or you used to.
I used to,
you still do
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now you're a dad.
Now I'm a dad, I can't really do that as much, but I used to love doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I kind of took like a weird pride in it as well, like, you know what I mean? The first time I did that was doing that image that won me the D&AD, because I remember thinking I've got to do something really good for this. And I remember sitting down in the morning, at 9 in the morning, with a blank piece of paper and think, I'm going to make this the best thing I've ever done, and it's going to take as long as it takes. And it took like 24 hours. I sat there and did that rabbit thing. And
That's great.
yeah, and like I remember like the next day, you know, at 9 o'clock the next day, being like, that's done. That's like, that's a good image. And being like, that was a good way to work. So I'm going to.
And you didn't get you say you didn't get a great response from your tutor with that?
Not really. I think they were just a bit like, oh no, it's like nice enough, but, and I was like, oh, come on, we got to put it in. That's my memory of it. I might be wrong, but
Yeah.
But yes, I've always had that kind of thing about, staying up through the night, and I used to love doing that. And it's working through the night is so much nicer because you're not distracted with like emails and stuff.
Yeah,
and
I
phone
feel
calls
like Charlie Davis said this on his podcast. He enjoys the silence of like, you know, no one's contacting you, no one's chasing you, don't need anything, you can just concentrate on the work.
Yeah, it's the same why I like working on Sundays as well, a lot of the time, because no one's emailing you, you're not distracted, you can just get into that kind of flow of it, you know.
Yeah. Any clients listening now?
Yeah.
All right. Book him in for Sunday.
Yeah. But yeah.
So is it, you've got 3 kids now, three under 5?
Yeah, I mean, one is now 6, so.
Okay. But still, I mean, pretty full on. That
Yeah.
must have hugely changed your way of working and your work-life balance. How have you found that transition?
I feel like before then, there was always a lot of time to kind of step back from my work, a portfolio, like review things a bit and be like, what could I do to kind of push things forward a bit, or make a few more pieces that would kind of, you know, push things in another direction. But since having kids, it's just been coping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It's hard to kind of, it's hard to put into words how much of a shift that really has, especially when a lot of my like work life is just revolved around time, like trying to get things done in time and trying to make the best use of like what time I've got, or like, you know what I mean? Like
having that pick up, whether it's 3:30 or whenever it is.
Yeah.
Just sort of hangs over your whole day, doesn't it? And it's like, well, that's coming, so I need to do this by then.
Yeah, that's right. No matter what, they can't really, and you can't push them back.
No.
You can't say, can we just pick the kids up at 4:30 instead, or you know. Yeah, so it just changes everything. But you know, but then again, I have had enough time now to get to this point where I can manage my time, and you know what I mean. Like I've got a way better idea of how long things take, and you know, and I've got to do the thing I do to kind of get things finished quicker, or you know.
And are you doing the school run and stuff like that?
To be honest, it's mostly my wife at the minute, but I do try when I can. You know, yeah. I mean, our school is only 10 minutes down the road. So it's not a big ask.
And you're not in Brighton now, are you?
No, we're in like a little village just outside, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just been a massive change, huge.
I found an interview you did with It's Nice That in 2012.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I wondered how many of these answers are still interesting. So yeah, the first question was, where do you work? And you said from a desk in my bedroom in Brighton. How does your working day start? How tell me the answer now, and I'll tell you if
I get woken to screams of my firstborn.
Yeah, it's changed a bit.
What did I say there? Did I say?
So you said Earl Grey tea, peanut butter on toast.
Oh, sounds so
Check my usual
relaxing.
websites. It sounds so nice, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Put some music on and start drawing whatever I put down the night before.
Oh, wow.
Do
What
you
a
miss those
treat.
days?
Yeah.
So tranquil.
Yeah, it's not like that anymore. It's very different. Yeah. It's just different.
Good different.
Yeah, it is good different. I mean, you can't say that forever.
Yeah.
It also says, one question was, where would we find you if you're not at work?
I don't know what I would have said 2012 in the pub.
Well, you said doing personal projects, although you also mentioned I'm getting pretty good at Battlefield 3.
Yeah. I did waste a lot of time in my early 20s playing computer games.
I love it though. It's really fun to find answers from a former life.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel that different. It's still like I wake up and sit at my desk and do essentially the same thing, but just under more time constraints and
More duress.
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about a couple of specific projects that we've done. I mean, there's so many we've worked on in 15 years. I guess the ones that stand out for me, well, one in particular would be the Star Wars books you did with Hodder.
Yeah.
So the first one was the Galactic Atlas,
Yeah.
which I think was 26 maps. And it's
Something like that,
insanely
yeah.
detailed. So anyone that's not seen this book, it's incredible. It's a fully illustrated book, kind of mapping the Star Wars universe. I looked it up earlier on Wikipedia. But yeah, you drew sort of these worlds in great detail. But you were a big fan of Star Wars, so
Yeah.
was that like quite?
But you also drew like all of the characters. In the other
Every
book,
character.
right?
Yeah.
This is pre Disney Star Wars. I guess. Or
I think it
slightly.
was just as that was coming out.
Yeah.
So there was quite a lot of excitement around Star Wars again.
Yeah.
Just before it came out. And I was dead excited as well about all that coming out. I think the trailer had been released or something like that. Or maybe it was Force Awakens had just come out and Rogue One was about to come out.
Yes, I think it was about around that time.
Because there was a lot of talk about how we were going to get one of the new maps from the new films then into the book, and that was a big.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
It's very secret. I think Stuart wouldn't even tell me about it.
Yeah.
But it was like that. At one point, they were thinking about sending somebody from Disney down with a laptop to like show me, handcuffed to their wrists, and this is what the characters, because they couldn't email anything, so it was too secret. They couldn't. I mean, that was a big thing, and they're like, well, we can describe things to you. Like, oh my god,
I need to see it.
Oh, yeah, it was mad. But I mean, God, at the time, I was just so thrilled to be working on that. I was a massive Star Wars fan, and that like played a huge part of my childhood. And I kind of just tried to tap back into that and get back to that stuff. And a lot of the maps as well, because it's from those early films. It was just. I knew so much of the stuff anyway.
Yeah.
I think it would have been quite difficult for someone to do that who wasn't as into it as I was.
Sure.
I was just massive on it.
But each book was hours and hours of work, right?
Yeah, and I mean, one of the hardest things to do was the research of it, because there are so many things of it, and they were trying to kind of make this the definitive kind of canon.
So encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Almost,
So it all had to be kind of correct inside the universe, and it all had to be kind of, there was some timeline stuff they didn't want in, and some they did. But it was just a lot of the hardest bit was kind of researching it. But and as well, I mean, another difficult thing is it wasn't like my usual work. Like it doesn't really look that much like some of my other stuff.
So did you develop like a sub-style specifically for the project, or how did that come about? Or was it like was it born out of the fact that you had these deadlines, so you had to adapt?
I think they asked for a test piece, like they said, like if which was like Tatooine, like the easiest one to do.
Everyone's favourite.
Yeah. Like, because I knew, I was such a big Star Wars fan. I knew Tatooine like the back of my hand, and I knew how I would want that to look as a kid. I was just like, I can, I just know what this has got to look like. I just remember loving this, just thinking, I don't mind if they don't ask me to do the whole book, because I was just so happy to do that.
Just do the test.
Do the test, yeah, it was. I was so into it. And then from there, after you've done one, you kind of got a bit of a template of how the rest of the book will look, you know.
But I think sometimes those kind of book projects need an illustrator with that raw love for that.
Yeah,
that
you
topic.
Definitely do.
Because if you break it down to like a cost per illustration, it just doesn't. It doesn't add up.
Yeah,
I've got one of my son's friends that he plays football with. His dad was telling me he loves that book so much that for about 3 years he read it every night and slept with it in his bed.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
So
really,
there you go.
That is so. I mean, I've had
the dad or the son?
The son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't believe how. I mean, I couldn't believe how well received it was, and like how many people I knew who, you know, bought it, or how often I went to people's houses and they just happened to have it. Or,
What's the name of the book? Do you remember?
The Galactic Atlas.
And wasn't there another one though?
Yeah, the character. Alien Archive.
Thank you, Stuart.
Character Alien Archive. Yeah, that's the one that I've got.
They're beautiful books if you get the chance to look them up. Well worth a look. And the other big project I think that stands out to me is it's an ongoing thing, but it's the work you do for New York Times Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Which are, anyone that doesn't know, New York Times, I think once a month do like a kids supplement at the weekend that is themed around a particular subject matter. You've illustrated 7 or 8 of them now, maybe?
Something like that. I mean, I've done quite a few of the covers, and I often do a few of the
interiors. So you did the cover for The Human Body, which was incredible. Yeah. We did a Wales issue. We did the Nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah, that was for the kind of New York Times opinion, really. Right?
Oh, okay, so that wasn't the kid. Yeah, a bit dark for the kids.
Yeah, you don't have the kids.
That's the one that had the scrolling effect on the website.
The parallax scroll.
Yeah, that was
beautiful.
That was clever.
But that, you know, those New York Times. Whenever those New York Times Kids ones come out, I'm like, I wish I was a kid, and I wish I lived in New York, because they are so beautifully put together, and it's really hard for us to get printed copies of them here.
Oh, really? They always send me.
They send them to you. We don't get them, but they are so beautiful. Is that something you enjoy?
Oh, that's like my probably my favorite client to work for. Yeah, it's just such a dream. Yeah, it's like a lot of jobs come in, they're kind of jobs, and that's fine. But there is something special about working with those people, and like those jobs. I mean, a lot of the time I think they just are very good at kind of matching your style with their content. So they're very good at matching the illustrator to the
you did the
content. Yeah.
Bugs one, was there an insect one?
Yeah, Bugs one, that was fun.
Which is kind of perfect for you.
Yeah, that was great. But the body one in particular was just, I think that was the first one I did with them. That was just so much fun to do. And they give you like a fair amount of time as well, so it's not completely crazy. And like the art director Deborah there, it's just so lovely, and there's something about the way that she emails which makes you want to do better as well.
Oh really?
Yeah, she's like really, no, she's like lovely, but like really laid back. I'd say she's got like a really good attitude towards working, which makes you feel like I really want to make this really good.
Yeah, and they do really. It does come across, doesn't it? They have that attention to detail and that.
Yeah, well, I think as well, it's like the format, so they're quite long.
Yeah, is that a Berliner? Is that
what it's called?
I think I might be wrong. Anyone that's a newspaper designer, but I think it's the Berliner. It's a sort of long and thin format. Right.
Yeah, and I feel like that's quite unusual format to work in anyway. Yeah. And so that's kind of, you're already in a kind of a fun problem-solving thing from the start. You know what I mean? It's not like a normal.
Because they're quite hard to show online. Because of that format, I've always felt like it's quite difficult to show them. We've got them in the portfolios because I think they look so good printed. But online, it's like they're like a long thin.
Yeah,
format.
that's right. Yeah, it's a pain, isn't it?
Yeah, nice projects. And the other thing I wanted to talk about that we've done together is your little film about.
Oh yeah.
A few years ago now.
A few years ago.
I still think yours is the best.
Well, was that one of the early ones?
That was about the 5th one that we made.
It's definitely the weirdest.
Yeah.
So just for anyone that hasn't seen it, we'll put a link with the podcast. The whole premise of the film, and this was Pal came up with this idea. Shout out to Pal, who used to make these incredible films for us. But they came up with the idea of kind of a play on fandom and fans of your work, and they came up with the idea of somebody being your stalker.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I think that something like that really happened or something, or it came from. I didn't really have a stalker, but I think I had somebody who was really intent on getting my work as a tattoo or something like that, and I was trying to talk them out of it, and blah, blah, blah.
But the film is great, and we hired a professional actor.
Yeah.
Whose name I can't remember, but
I've seen him in something else.
We've seen him in other things. He's really good.
Yeah.
But Tim, you can act.
Yes.
Well.
So I remember taking the train down to Brighton to I was just to photograph the filming, to see what was going on.
Yeah.
And I wasn't fully aware of the plan that they'd hatched, but I just remember the scene where you're sat on the sofa with your stalker, and you're sort of ad-libbing, and I remember just standing there and being like, where is this coming from?
You're really good. There's you and the professional actor in the scene, and
it was amazing.
He's great, but you hold your own in that scene.
Thanks, guys.
De Niro-esque.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I remember that being a lot of fun. But with that kind of thing, you can't just sit back and I didn't want to look like the boring kind of.
But you just went with it, and I don't think we knew you. We didn't know you as well as we did as we do now.
Yeah.
And it was just, the way that this idea was just placed upon you. I mean, did you have any control over the concept of the film as well? Because generally, I can't really remember how the idea came about and how it was kind of conveyed to me. How we always work with Pal is that they would basically record an interview with the illustrator. Yeah. And then from that, they would sort of garner ideas to how to make a film. And then that original recording would cover a lot of the voiceover as well.
I see.
But I mean, there's a scene where the stalker's dressed as a hedge. They're following you down the street. I mean, I know you get quite a lot of filming in Brighton, but there must have been people watching. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, I remember having to ask my landlord. I remember that being something that I got worried about. He was very particular about the building, like the flat we were renting. He was very particular about the building, to be very quiet with closing doors, stuff like that. I remember telling him the day before, there's going to be a film crew here for a couple of days, just take over. And it's going to be pretty mad. But I remember that being a lot of fun. I remember kind of enjoying it. But I don't really remember, the direction or what was told to me. But I do remember it being. Well, look,
if the illustration work ever dries up, I think you've got
give it a go.
A career.
If you want to watch the film, I think if you Google Tim McDonagh, Handsome Frank, and then click on videos, you will find it, or a little film about.
Yes, Tim and it's McDonagh. On our site as well under the watch section. Yes. But there's a lovely moment in the film near the end where you talk about holding your breath. Is that something you do, or is that something that was conceived for the film?
No, I do that. Yeah, for longer. If I'm drawing a very long line or a very important line, I'll hold my breath. Yeah.
And the stalker said he likes to hold his breath,
which is really fun. But that's genuinely something you do, breathing controlled for those delicate kind of.
Yeah, because there's not many lines like that, but it's stuff like if it's like the profile of a face, that'll be kind of the forehead, nose, and mouth. That'll all kind of almost be one line.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's the only thing where I'm like, please don't let my wife walk in right now, or the kids come in right now, because that really is the difference between messing up the whole thing, And it's only happened a couple of times where it's like if you break the line whilst doing that, it F's everything up.
Have you ever spilt a bottle of ink and just
only once
completely trashed a piece?
Yeah, only once I did that. I remember. Well, that was a long time ago, though.
Yeah.
But I can't remember why I was doing it. But it was a matter of I've just finished the piece. I'm about to scan it in. I'm just going to move that ink there, and it just went over the whole thing.
Oh dear.
Heartbreak.
Yeah, heartbreak. Yeah.
Is there a specific brand of ink you use?
I use Winsor & Newton, like the standard black ink, but I have tried quite a few I've probably tried over 20 different brands. There's one called Rollerball, which is quite good. There's a few that we use, but they're usually like waterproof, kind of as black as you can get, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the most important.
And a paper and brushes. Anything you would recommend?
Paper, like, for anyone interested in using like brush and ink, bristle board is much better than kind of your standard cartridge paper, because it the ink sits on top of the bristle board, like just about, so it doesn't get soaked in with like a cartridge paper. You know, you get that thing where you used to paint when you were a kid, and you put the paint, and then the ink just
splodges in. Yeah. So do they take longer to dry?
No. It's like if you use kind of waterproof ink, it dries in seconds usually. Yeah. That's one of the only other things to be careful not to do is the smudging. Make sure it's dry and the hand going over and all that kind of.
And go to brush.
Faber-Castell, like Series 7, are like they're really good. And also another brand called Rosemary's brushes are excellent. They use to these sable brushes that are kind of similar. And they're a little bit cheaper as well. They are really good.
Okay, well, we'll put some links to where you can buy those.
Yeah, good stuff.
Do you remember when we launched his video, the swear word, when we would?
Oh yeah, there was a swear.
There was
a
we had
a clean version and
a point in the voiceover where he went sweary word, and we were like, oh no, we need to take it out, and then we made them redo it, and then I think I don't know why. Why did we worry about that?
Well, they swore what I swore.
No, you remember
they
the Welsh?
Swore in
there was the Welsh voiceover.
Oh right.
It was when they discovered the wall with all the work.
Right. Yeah.
But I just remember John and I really like deliberating about whether we should put the.
I know, and then a couple of years later, we just thought, we'll just upload the sweary version. Just be done with it. The world changed. I got a couple of questions in from people on social media. I'm not sure who they're from, so apologies if I don't mention your name, but is there anything you hate to draw?
Like straight lines, that kind of thing.
Okay. A lot of breath work.
Yeah, I tell you what, if I ever get asked to like a robot, something like that, it's just, because, it's all angular, straight and that kind of thing. Not so keen on buildings, like for a similar kind of reason, like a lot of straight lines. Because it's usually a problem of, shall I use a ruler and try but then that looks a bit too straight, but then if I'm just doing it freehand, that looks too wobbly. And it's just like stupid stuff like that, which sounds, why is he worrying about that? But when you...
when you're the one drawing it,
when you're kind of doing it, and then you see the end result, I can see why that looks rubbish.
And because you've been asked to draw ships a lot, haven't you? But I heard that you don't like drawing ships, or is that not true?
Ships are all right. It depends how, like, if it's like a destroyed ship, like a kind of a woodeny...
Well, we did...
the pirate ship.
We did Treasure Island, didn't we? And we did...
that was one of my first...
Many years ago, we did a Treasure Island cover.
Yeah. But no, I don't mind drawing a ship. Yeah, like if it's like a more organic form, like lots of nice texture on it and that kind of thing.
Not like a modern P&O cruiser.
No, you wouldn't want like a... no. Yeah, something like that wouldn't be good. But yeah, lots of straight angular lines I find difficult. And I think I'll always find that difficult, really. Yeah.
I've got a question from Yvette, who's on our books. Yvette says, how long, on average, does a piece of work take? I guess that's all relative to what you're drawing, but can you give us an average?
It just depends on the piece, really. But usually I'll kind of roughly be like a day to rough it, a day to ink it, and a day to colour. It's like roughly what I'll have, but it completely depends on the piece, really. Like, portrait stuff is much quicker, whereas like big detailed stuff, it depends how much of the image it is. Like if it's like a full image thing, it can take a lot longer, but it completely depends on the thing.
Looking at the level of detail in your work, though, a day for each stage is still really quick.
But it used to be. I mean, I remember, like I said before, I've got to this point and I know how to just do things so much quicker. Whereas those images we talked about earlier in the D&AD, remember each one took a month.
Yeah.
You
always look back at being a design student and being like,
what was I doing?
I had 3 weeks to make like one thing.
Yeah, I know.
That's just so unrealistic of the commercial world.
Yeah. I mean, I do kind of wish, I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day, that we had been pushed a bit more to like learn about the realities of being a commercial illustrator and the time constraints and how to work quick and that kind of thing.
I think that's one thing we learned, is that because you can see an incredible piece of work and think, wow, when I sign that person, that's amazing. But you have no idea about the conditions under which that piece of work was made.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, how much trial and error there was, how long it took.
Yeah.
Whether that is something that is going to even be viable.
Yeah, it's that like reflective of something they can do for a commercial project and that kind of thing. I mean, I think I had like quite like some bits like that from a while ago that were super detailed, and that I eventually took out my portfolio because I just couldn't replicate that like commercially as much.
I think that's a really important thing to say, actually, that I've had this with other artists. You know, if there's something in your portfolio, no matter how much you might like it and people might warm to it, if you can't replicate it and you don't want to be asked to do it again, take it out.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
Otherwise, it's almost like you've got something in the shop window that isn't for sale. You know, which is just frustrating for everyone.
Yeah, because I guess like, you know, clients want to know what they're going to get. You know what I mean? So you can't really.
Oh, you can't have that. You know, I can
no,
do this.
No. That's going to take me 2 months to do that.
A couple more questions. Do you have a favourite period of art history?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Are you an art historian? Or?
Do you know what? I'm not really that kind of a person, you know what I mean? I just have this select few. I mean, there was this poster scene happening in like the early 2000s in America mainly that I kind of loved. I wouldn't really think that gets put into the art history
Who are
books.
the people working?
There's people like Aaron Hawkey and Daniel Danger, Dan McCarthy. There are lots of names like that. Ken Taylor, and they're all kind of part. There's a few more names. They're all part of this kind of Mondo poster scene in America. Ollie Moss was like another one. He was like the king of that scene.
Yeah,
do you know his work?
Yeah, of course. He did the Star Wars stuff, and
he
did he do the Firewatch concept art?
Yeah, he did the Firewatch concept. Yeah, I remember when I did that Pick Me Up talk, he was there.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, I remember like talking to him afterwards. I was just gushing over his work. But so that whole scene like was just a massive influence on me. That kind of informed all the kind of stuff that I wanted to do and what I really loved at the time.
I think that's quite common though. You know, when you're at uni, you kind of tap into something.
Yeah, and just want to, you know, you have a kind of thing where you're like, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah,
I want to do that
I
stuff.
had a similar thing with design.
Did you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that,
And it is, and this is another thing that I find quite interesting is that we're kind of like of a similar age now where we're kind of like getting to halfway through our living lives. But you kind of, I think there's a lot of people that just stop looking for that kind of informative stuff that then influences the next sort of level of work.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. But in your 20s, you're just so open to it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think, you know, when you're that age as well, you're a bit more, you haven't seen, you know, you're way more open to it, but there's so much you haven't seen. Like you cling on, you know, these things have a bigger effect.
They make a bigger
on you.
impression.
Yeah, and they kind of mold you a bit more, especially when you really get your claws into it. And
I think same applies to music and film, doesn't it? Like the stuff that you're into at a younger age sort of stays with you. It has more of an effect on you somehow. Yeah,
that's right. And I mean, like a lot of those guys as well that are making those images were like insane. Like how good these guys were. Like their drawing skills, their inking skills were so crazy that I kind of, you know, was like arrogant enough. When you're that age, you're arrogant enough to be like, I'm going to be just like them. And you try and you don't quite get there, but you get close.
I don't think everyone's like that. I think that was you, and that is a big part of what's got you to where you are now.
Yeah. No, I maybe. Yeah.
You know, you need that kind of self-belief.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of that when, university, I was kind of very, and actually just all through my like young years, I was just a bit too cocky and like super overconfident.
But I was exactly the same. And I've had this conversation with quite a few people, and I've always said this thing of like, you need to surround yourself by people who are better than you, and I've always tried to do that.
Yeah.
But I think it is that kind of, you need a little bit of that kind of self-confidence within your work and your abilities to stand out to people. I mean, obviously, you have to have the skills to back it up.
Yeah.
But I do think that is an important part in this career, in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I think once you, especially when you start acting like that and talking like when I was younger, talking like that, like you say, you do have to have the skills to back it up. So you're kind of then forced to go back and make sure it looks good if you're going to talk the talk.
But there's little things like, your comments about drawing straight lines and that critique that you're still applying to your work. That's so important.
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't, not all creative people, like not just illustrators, but not all creative people have that. They kind of do a bit of work and they may not believe it's as good as, well, no, they do believe it's as good as they can do, but I think deep down they kind of also know it isn't.
Really, I mean, I have a lot of that. I have a lot of like, I have a lot of stuff of like, there's a lot of good work in me that I really want to do when I can find the time to do it. I'm like constantly walking this tightrope between what can I, manage to do, or how much can I fit in and like keep the standard good, but like, you know what I mean? It's like a weird...
What are the jobs that you'd love to do that you haven't done? What are the areas you'd love to work in? Or
I don't know. I mean, I used to have a long list, but I've like done a lot of like the Star Wars stuff and like the New Yorker stuff. The New York Times. I recently did a spot. My one thing I had for ages was to do a New Yorker cover. That was like the thing I always wanted.
Yeah, a lot of people have that.
Yeah, I mean that was like the standard illustration kind of dream, isn't it?
And you've done some nice alcohol packaging as well.
Yeah, I've done some of that.
I'm always surprised you've not done more packaging. Actually, I think.
Yeah, whiskey and rum.
Yeah, maybe that's next.
Do you remember the bottle? I think it was rum. And it was this whole refraction.
Yeah.
It was like that you had to draw the image of how it would refract through the bottle. But then when you looked through the bottle, you would see it unrefracted.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe... I think I was like pretty new. I was pretty new then as well.
But I don't think
I can't believe I had the gall to even have a go at something like that. Do you know what I mean? But at the time, you just, I'll try it.
Did that ever come to market? I don't remember seeing it.
I don't know. I don't know when half the stuff does or doesn't. You know what I mean? I just do it and then send the, and then, if I hear about it, I do. And if I don't, I don't know.
Fair enough.
But, that seems crazy. Now,
sorry, I've just thought of another question. What do you do with all your originals?
I just chuck them in the bin.
No, you could.
A lot of the time I do, yeah.
In the bin?
Well, they take up so much space. They take up a lot of space. A lot of the time, friends will come round and be like, "Oh, can I have this?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, you can have that." I used to have like an online shop, and I used to get a lot of emails about can I buy this and that. Sometimes the art director would ask to buy the inks for the thing as well.
I think we need to. I mean, we
monetize this.
Quite a lot of Sarah Maycocks we sell on after. Because they want the original.
Yeah, that's nice.
And we have to sort of say, well, it's quite, similar to you, some of them are comped together.
Yeah.
Or if they're amends, it's, you don't always get something that's true to the final piece.
Yeah, that's right.
Explaining to a client that actually, even though you've commissioned an image, you don't own the original.
Yeah.
That's sometimes an interesting conversation.
I'd like to think that somewhere down near Brighton there's a bin man who's got his walls decorated every single week. He just collects them out the bin.
When I lived in Brighton, I remember taking them all out to the recycling bin one day on like a windy day and going from the front door to the outside bin and then flying down the road. And
that's self-promotion, isn't
that's
it?
Quite that's
guerrilla
nice image
guerrilla marketing.
I mean so many of the pieces that were done on separate pieces of paper and the odd bit, and it just, you think, oh, can't you sell all of these? Like, no one wants a,
half drawn.
I brought the Viking.
But what was it? Yeah, the Viking.
I still got the original Viking.
I'm very jealous of the Viking. Yeah.
I need to bring it in here.
I need an original, Tim.
Yeah, sort it out for you next time.
Thank you so much for coming up.
That's all right.
Really,
no worries.
really good. We've been speaking for nearly an hour, I think. So let's wrap things up. But yeah, thank you for coming in. I really hope we get to work together for at least another 15 years.
For sure.
yeah, loads more we want to do, and can't wait to see where you go next.
Thank you, guys. Thanks
Cheers.
for being so lovely.
Thank you very much.
All right, cheers.
And if you'd like to know more about Handsome Frank and our artists, check out our website, handsomefrank.com.
Thanks very much for listening.
Handsome Frank.
Just say something.
Hi, Tom. That's my podcast voice.
That's lovely.
Hi, Tom.